So hi everyone, my name is Christian. I'm part of the marketing team here at Kiwik. Thanks for being here today for today's webinar, how to set up a best-in-class virtual waiting room, best practices, and ask me anything. The standard kind of spiel on our webinars, it will be recorded as I just alluded to, so we'll be sending this out to all of you. So again, in case you missed something, want to go back and review it or send it to a colleague, you'll have the opportunity to do so. And if you have any questions as you go along, there should be a Q&A uh, option in the toolbar. It might be hidden under, at least for me, it is under the kind of more menu. But basically, as we said, we have a Ask Me Anything section at the very end. So we'll be happy to deal with those. Worst case, you can throw something in the chat if it's not working. But we love questions. That's why we're here today as well. So please don't be shy with them. And with that said, we'll go ahead and just do some quick introductions. As I mentioned, my name is Christian. I'm on the marketing team here at Kiwik. I'm originally from the US and have been based out of Copenhagen, Denmark, for the last 9 years. Been at Kiwik for the last 6.5 of them. And if you've been tuned into some of the other product talks, you might have seen me. I'm a familiar face running or playing host on some of these. Today, I'm really have the great pleasure to have our longtime Kiwik friend Johnny on the call too. Johnny, do you want to do a little quick intro?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Hey, folks. My name is Johnny Packard. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm a solutions architect at Kiwik. I've been here nearly 6 years. So if you've been with Kiwik for a while, it's likely you've crossed paths. But really happy to be here to talk about best-in-class waiting room setup and maybe some holiday prep. So thanks for having me.
Great. So I figure most of you joining are already Kiwik customers. That's who we typically kind of target these talks to. But we know we also have some maybe newly minted Kiwik customers or someone who's in kind of as a prospect and maybe curious about Kiwik. So the quick 30-second intro is basically Kiwik helps power online trust, one high demand sale or registration at a time. The way we do that is with the virtual waiting room that lets you control the flow of visitors into your systems in real time, ensure the capacity is never exceeded, and at the same time, giving a really transparent, reliable, and fair user experience for customers, especially during those really moments of those kind of mission critical, high visibility days when you have a lot of traffic at your site. So a quick rundown of what we'll be covering today. We have best practices. We actually snuck in even a fifth one in here. So there's those 4 plus one more. Then we'll do a live demo. And by we, I mean Johnny. And then finally, we have a Ask Me Anything section at the end. So again, don't be shy with those questions. So with that said, we'll jump into the best practices. There are many of them. So we try to think about different ways to group them. This is how we're going to be grouping them today. And I will pass things off to Johnny to take the first 1 and 2 there.
Thanks, Christian. So when thinking about starting or having a waiting room, when you know your team's going to need to have a waiting room, the first really questions you really should be asking are, why are we here? What is the reason for this waiting room? What are the business goals that are supporting the reason for this waiting room? With that and those key details, then we can begin to move on to the next step in the process of knowing the finer details, being who, what, where, when, why kind of thing, the timing of all that. So looking at the screen now, we have shared a brief or a guideline, if you will, of a planning or a run book, so to speak, leading up to an event. So in the first couple of weeks leading up to the event, it's really the setup, integration, configuration, and design portion. So ensuring that the account is set up. You have a customer account in Kiwik. All of your contracts signed, all of that stuff. The business stuff that I love having those conversations about as a tech person. Thanks, sales folks. Then the integration piece, okay, with the technical engagement team or on your own to get the Kiwik connector in place. Think of this as like a mise en place, getting everything in its place, ready to create this waiting room, even though the waiting room will be a part of that mise en place, so to speak. But ensuring that everything is connected, Kiwik's connector is in place, the account is in place, and then we can go to create the configuration portion, the create events, actions triggers, talking with the Qt team, learning their best practices, and then testing and validating your waiting room connection to Qt. Those are really the most important key pieces. Design, absolutely. Qt loves to work with your marketing teams, your brand teams, because truly, with a best-in-class waiting room, offering a seamless user experience is the goal. So as if the customer hasn't left your site at all. A very seamless experience when you've got your site branded on the theme, the user experience exactly how you folks want it, and our front-end development team is available to help with that. So if you're looking for design assistance, please reach out to your Qt representative for that. But really, in those first couple of weeks, that's when we recommend these steps should be taken. Of course, this webinar is being recorded, so we will share this after the fact, and you can have, if you want to take screenshots of this, or again, reach out to your Qt folks to get any of the collateral from this call. Back to you, Christian.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. And I think that was, being clear on the strategy maybe sounds a little fluffy. Hopefully that image there helps make it a little more concrete what we're talking about. And because that does cover a lot, what we're going to do is zoom in a little bit more in depth on kind of best practices around those different sections. So you might have noticed user journey planning is one of the first steps. Johnny's going to speak a little bit more to that. The kind of waiting room design and configuration, I'll be speaking to that a little bit. So again, there's a lot covered there. We want to kind of set the scene, but now give the mic back to Johnny to talk a little bit about the planning of the user journey.
Thanks again, Christian. So we're thinking about that. What was that?
Anytime.
We're thinking about your user journey, how you want this waiting room to behave, what you want Qt to do with your users. So when will the waiting room need to be activated? What pages are being protected? What parts of the site are there? Add to cart endpoints, which need to be protected. All of these are really important to figure out well in advance of the waiting room, because you want to make sure that any potential ways to get around Qt, which we all know people try, but when Qt is configured correctly and covering all of the potential endpoints to a protected path, you're not going to get people bypassing a waiting room. So what we recommend at Qt is to have a user flow, think like a UX user flow or a user journey mapped out. And by all means, share that with your Qt team member, your Qt solutions team member, your customer success team manager, because we can help ensure that everything is configured as expected. This is all, of course, assuming you're working with your Qt folks. Without, again, I would recommend absolutely ensuring that you have all of the pages and paths of your protected event, protected pages, love that iteration, protected by an action triggering Qt. I believe that brings us to the next section, Christian.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Johnny.
Your favorite part and mine, from what I've seen.
Very cool. So I'll be taking a little bit more deep dive in these last 3 points, and of course with some input from Johnny, since he's the one kind of been in the trenches with many customers over the past 6 years on this.
I
branding
wouldn't say in the trenches at all. It's been very enjoyable.
At the elbow support, there with through thick and thin.
Absolutely.
That's true. Yeah. But just a point on this topic about branding experience, I did want to flag, we did an entire webinar dedicated to this of how to use, make the waiting room, use the Q page as a marketing asset. And that's on our website. If you didn't watch it last time, it's really a good one. If I do say so myself, we talked about branding the experience. We talked about Q psychology in depth. We also talked about the marketing uses, which we're not going to cover here today. And we have a lot of customer examples. So just a flag on that, this is just going to kind of scratch the surface, a little reminder, but it is, of course, a best practice as well. The first being, right, that brand experience is crucial. So, right, having the customer feel connected to your brand from start to finish, feeling part of the experience, the sale event, all the way from before the queue to the checkout, right? And there are many ways to do this in Qt. We have here, you can personalize the logo, the background, customizable progress bar. Johnny and I talked about that. That's one of maybe our favorite portion of it. And we have some fun examples in the last webinar, including a dog. The queue man becomes a dog, and then when the queue is paused, the dog sits. That I think is one of my all-time favorites. But there's some really creative ones there, right? Again, everything to sort of match the look and feel and tone of your brand, making sure that's still true. That's true when your customers are in the waiting room. And just a couple examples here, right? So basically, as Johnny also likes to say, I'm going to steal a line from him. Any combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the world is your oyster. In this case, there's embedded content, kind of a Spotify playlist. There's the copywriter in me is quite happy with this one. A party without a queue is not worth going to, both for the rhyme, but also that it's quite playful, right? Matches this brand, and also frames the queue as a positive thing, right? Which we know is true in real life as well. If you see a queue outside of a store or bakery, you're gonna think there's something worthwhile going on there. And this is also some actually very recent example. We just did a customer success story with Sideshow. They do very high-end kind of figurines and collectibles. And this is an example. How is it hanging, Spider fans, right? For the Spider-Man figure. I quite like here the swing into, it's maybe a little hard to see. I can maybe zoom in on it here. But this swing into action, only 50 items left before they're gone faster than Spider-Man at a crime scene, right? That also alludes to some of the stuff I'll talk about in the next section. And one fun fact, this, even it's not so prominent, but this, act fast to save and you get a 30% off. Sideshow is able to generate $23,000 additional cross-selling just from that code on an annual basis. So there's a lot to do there. And again, we dive really in depth on that type of stuff in last quarter's webinar, so do check it out. But as I mentioned, me and Johnny mentioned, we couldn't have a best-in-class waiting room experience topic or talk if we didn't talk about the branded and seamless experience. Anything you want to add on there, Johnny?
I would just say that Sideshow does a really great job of that branded experience. They're really fun guys to work with too. So I look forward to any time that they have an event because I know they're going to bring something really fun and beautiful for the waiting room. So, and as a total nerd, like proud nerd, I love this. I love their shop. So anyway,
it's always a win-win. Oh, but that's very cool, and I'm very, very glad we were able to get their story documented on. That's also on the site if you should be interested in checking that out.
Okay.
Fourth point is also another favorite topic here at Qt, and we'll show how it kind of translates to the waiting room setup. But it's using Q psychology for an informed wait. So keeping people informed is really, really important. The more information, the better. And that's, helps make the wait as enjoyable as possible by delivering an informed and transparent wait. And so there's actually an entire science around this, and I'll give you kind of some concrete examples in a bit that, it might be an academic discipline, but we have all experienced the elements of Q psychology in our lives. The main finding, and this is from Harvard Business School, a reviewer named David Meister there, says it's not the length of the wait, it's really how we feel while we're waiting that makes all the difference. And again, you can think about this if you've been in a situation on the phone, right? If you call a number and it's just a busy dial tone, there's a bunch of questions, a bunch of uncertainty. Did I dial the wrong number? Is the company out of business, or do I just need to dial back? And is it in a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Same thing with a hold music, right? You don't know if it's going to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. And even if it is only a 3-minute wait, it feels like way longer because you don't know, right? And then think about a situation where you call and you get, hey, get a message explaining we have high call volumes you're number 10 in line, expect a wait time of 5 minutes. You can press 1 for a callback when it's your turn. Just think about how you feel in that situation. That is kind of Q psychology in a nutshell. And we like to think at Qt, if you're able to do it as a best in class setup, you're going to feel, your visitors are going to feel like that third situation. And I'll walk through those kind of concretely in the waiting room in a sec. But just briefly, what makes your wait feel shorter? Some of them I already alluded to in that little anecdote there. This is again from Harvard Business School, but occupied time feels shorter than unoccupied time. There are many examples of this, from magazines in the doctor's office to mirrors while you're waiting for elevators. So people look at themselves and they forget how they have to wait for the elevator. That's a time-honed example. Getting started when you walk into a restaurant, right? Those first couple minutes, if you're not given the menu to be able to get started, start looking, that feels really antsy. But if you have the menu in front of you, you're able to kind of look. You feel like you've gotten the process of ordering already started. Known finite waits are shorter than waits where you don't know the time. That's kind of straightforward. I gave the example already before about being told when you call someone or call somewhere, expected wait time. Explained waits is there, we like to know why, where this is a human thing. If you'll notice, if you're ever been on a flight and there's been a delay, what does a pilot always do? They always come on and explain exactly why. Whether it's because there's a backlog of planes or they're waiting on staff, whatever, right? They're always explaining why. That helps us feel like we're more in control of the situation. We know what's going on. We're able to kind of act based on that. Calmness, basically any anxiety makes waits feel longer. And that kind of ties into many of the other ones. And fairness, right? If you are in a physical line and you see people keep cutting in line, it's going to make the wait, not only actually longer, but also it's going to feel even longer because you're going to get all upset and about the kind of injustice of that. So how do you kind of put these into practice in the waiting room itself? So first, we talk about clearly explaining the wait. Again, we have ample opportunity to do that on the waiting room itself, right? So in this case, let's say it's too hot to handle with higher traffic than usual. Again, explaining a little bit, this is a situation, you're in a virtual waiting room, your turn will be up soon, orienting them that they're in the right place, right? Showing all wait information. Again, this is something we don't see all customers always doing, and we can understand there's different situations or different kind of considerations here, but our best practice following the Q psychology recommendation would be to show as much, if not all, wait information as possible. Estimated wait time, when you can expect, where you are, how many people are ahead of you. Again, that progress bar, turning waiting into progress, is really important as well. Using real-time communication, again, it kind of speaks about showing the progress and just giving a more transparent and better user experience, right? If I'm in line for red, then I know, okay, I don't have to kind of wait anymore. I can leave. But so this is very common, and maybe I can ask Johnny about some examples from here, but very often giving updates on remaining inventory. That's a common use case for the real-time communication. And then a little bit like I talked about go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Christian, that the dynamic messaging and the communication, the real-time communication with your guests is often overlooked when creating a waiting room, from what I've seen over the years, because that dynamic message gives you the opportunity to publish real-time updates. So anything, quite literally anything, inventory updates, as Christian mentioned, reasons why you might be pausing a waiting room. Maybe you want to slow the flow down toward the end of the sale, as we would recommend when things start to sell out. You want to pause and slowly resume. Even any communication is better than none in most cases. So I would just strongly encourage any teams to consider all possibilities of what you might want to put in there. And if you're stuck, please reach out to your Qt support staff members or your customer success manager for advice or guidance, because we'll be more than happy to provide that for you.
Great. Thanks, Johnny. Um, and that I should also flag that that is we've kind of surveyed customers that dynamic messaging, the real-time communication aspect of Qt has been one of the most popular features. And it seems like Johnny, you're nodding your head that that's also your experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, that email notification is so valuable. As someone who has waited in a queue 5+ times to get a console, a specific console a few years ago, getting that notification that my turn was coming up or was ready was so great because I didn't have to sit and monitor a page, go flip between pages. Hewitt just told me when it was my turn. So having that email notification may be a very good idea. However, we also are aware of the business concerns that may come with email communication. So again, work with your Qt staff members to figure out the exact use case, the best cases to fit your needs.
Yeah, and I can see there's a comment in the chat. I think this would be our best practice notification that if waits are over 30 minutes, then for sure you should use that email notification. If it's only a 2 or 3 minute wait, it probably doesn't make that much sense. But I mean, I think, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if the waits, sometimes it can be difficult to predict, right? How long the wait will be, at least in advance of the event. But I mean, even if the wait is 10 or 15 minutes, I think it's still value adding. But I think kind of from our perspective, it's like if the wait is over 30 minutes for sure, email notification would be our recommendation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is very difficult to say, how fast things are going to go because we're typically dependent on our back-end infrastructures. How much traffic can my site handle? How much outflow can I allow? And is there a lot of hype? Did someone just share something on Twitter or on social media that's going to drive traffic to the sites in however much time? So that email notification, even if it's less than 30 minutes, is still a really good idea for a peace of mind, really.
Yeah, and there's also a really nice aspect to it. If you're kind of start your queuing experience on a desktop, and then you get that email notification you can open up from your phone, and then open it up from your phone, kind of be able to switch devices in a way, and you're retaining the same queue position there. So it helps to kind of queue on the go.
Another fantastic usage. Yeah, another really great usage.
Great. And can it be turned on in real-time situation, or it's configured in the UI to meet a minimum of, say, 20 minutes? Maybe, Johnny, you can speak to that one.
So it can be turned on in real time. So in the custom theme menu of the custom theme for your waiting room, excuse me, email notifications can be turned on very quickly. And then Qt will start sending notes. Well, not sending, we'll show the form submission on the Qt page. And then once guests sign up, then we'll start sending it. So it really depends on the interaction with your users and when that happens. So yes, we can turn it on immediately, but the results are, of course, going to vary across guests. And then to meet a minimum of, say, 20 minutes, unfortunately, I don't believe that is possible at this moment. However, that's not to say that it won't or potentially couldn't happen in the future. So we'll be happy to share that with our product team.
Awesome. Thanks, Johnny. And lastly, we talk about embedding content, right? This helps going to the aspect about occupied waits, feeling shorter than unoccupied waits. Again, here's just one example, and I'll show a couple examples here as well from real customers. And again, I kind of put you to the last quarter's product talk where we go really in depth on a lot of different ways that you can do that. The last point here is including support info. There is a place in the GoQt platform to have the support info there that we definitely recommend filling out. And it can also be added to the Qt page itself. So I do just want to highlight this is one we also talked about in last quarter's webinar. So this is from telecom customer that we have. And of course, they have, you're in a queue, current wait time, et cetera, all the this sort of queue section there. But, don't be afraid to make your queue page a bit long. Utilize that full real estate, especially if folks are waiting. They're going to be able to scroll and view things. So there's some really nice examples here also about how they're kind of using this page to sell a bit more to help potentially upsell right into Apple One services. Again, something we talk about in depth in the last product talk. But here, what I wanted to highlight was the looking for help section that's added here, right? Give us a call, find a store, help articles again. So really a nice example of utilizing the real estate on this page to, among other things, also include support info for folks while they're waiting. And then lastly, before we jump into Johnny's demo, again, not it's part of that overall picture we saw in section 1, but we want to especially call it out because it's an area we see kind of really separate the good from the great experiences that our customers offer on communication. Again, it sounds a little fluffy, but really it helps solve so many issues ahead of time if this is done well. Johnny, do you want to maybe speak a little to the kind of internal aspect, and then I can take the customer-oriented communication?
Absolutely, yeah. So with any waiting room where you're expecting a lot of traffic, or even day to day, if you have a 24/7 visible at peak running, it's good to know who is in charge of managing and monitoring the waiting room, especially for those scheduled waiting rooms, though. We at Hewitt recommend crafting a run book of sorts, and I'll share examples after the demo, but having a point person for each task, and if possible, a high level or a planned run of show, time-wise. What time are events taking place? What time is this person doing this activity? And then potentially outflow goals, what you expect your outflow limit to be, because this will also help plan how long your guests may potentially have to wait in the waiting room. All of this information is really good to have ahead of time. Again, you'll hear me say it a lot because I love it when people contact us and we work with our customers. But if you have questions or are looking for recommendations, please don't hesitate to reach out. Our team is more than happy to be available to help guide you with that run book.
Awesome. Thanks, Johnny. And then if we turn to sort of the customer-focused communication, I think there's a couple of things, setting visitor expectations early with that transparent communication around why there's a waiting room, why you've implemented it, why you believe that it's fair, right? A little goes a long way. I'll show some examples of this from real customers and online in a second. But so just basically like why it's there, then explaining kind of concretely what's the setup. How do I join? Who's eligible to join? When do I need to show up? What can I expect if I'm showing up after the start time? And in particular, if you're using a pre-queue setup, this is an area we see a lot of confusion from our customers. So I do really want to highlight it and stress to communicate about this, how the pre-queue works. Again, I'll have a couple examples. But, communicating, let's say if the sale starts at 10, just communicating, you can show up from 8:30 till 10. You'll see a countdown page. At 10, everyone will be shuffled, randomized. You'll get a spot in queue where you can see when you'll be expected to get through. And then everyone arriving after that will be added to the end of that queue in a first in, first out order, for example. Right? It's really kind of maybe as simple as that, but rather over communicate that point. It's an area we see a lot of our customers kind of can be confused around that, and including a timeline if possible to help illustrate that. So here's a couple examples. See here again, a little can go a long way. Just explaining this is how the waiting room works. No one will be able to enter the site. A screen will appear, talking about at launch time, etc. You'll have 10 minutes to complete checkout, and so on. Here's another one that I quite like. This is for a university, and here I quite like the, just the timeline here. 8:30 to 10, info screen appears with the countdown timer from 10 a.m. You're able to start module booking, and there's some nice kind of FAQs down here explaining, you don't need to open several browser sessions. You don't need to refresh. People who enter the waiting room after 10 a.m. are placed at the end of the line, kind of articulating those things I just mentioned. Again, not a ton of text here, but just can be helpful. Here's another example. Let me zoom in here. Right, just talking about the waiting room. This is the queue, simple screenshot, how it works. Again, orienting folks to how it'll work, and kind of again talking about having that support information at the bottom here. And don't overlook the queue page itself as a communication tool as well. And I know I showed some of these examples with Johnny. He was really loving them, really digging them. This is from
Super great.
This is Home Office out of the UK. We have a success story with them as well. You can check out on the website. But here again, not over the top, but just, hey, while you're waiting, get your passport photo ready. You'll need it. Get your old passport. You need it. Again, this ties back to a little of the queue psychology as well, occupying people's time, and it makes the overall user experience much smoother, much faster. You can get more people through the system right when they have everything they need ready. This is quite a common use case in public sector, but also in retail, right? Make sure that you've logged in, make sure you have your customer ID ready, whatever it is. And one last example, I quite like this one. This is for Misty Ranch. They have another nice example of sort of a longer queue page. Here's an example of some embedded content. They have a little kind of behind the scenes video about the product, which is a big recommendation if you've seen our last webinar. Some of that storytelling, again, occupies time. It's really like get many birds with one stone there. And then they also have kind of those FAQs, sorry if this is a little small, but how the virtual waiting room works, the pre-queue landing page, the queue landing page, the post-queue landing page. Again, rather you have the message out there several times. So hopefully one of them will hit your customers, and give that overall, better experience. So just to reiterate.
Anytime I see,
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, anytime I see like a video content, maybe like Spotify or my favorites, live streams, I get really excited. Or even the logo on the progress bar, something like that. Those are my absolute favorites. Just had to share a little tidbit.
Yeah. Appreciate it. So again, quick rundown. These are the 5 best practices we've talked about. Again, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. They kind of overlap. There was that kind of nice illustration in the beginning that Johnny walked through that then we dove into a little bit more. And this is only a webinar. We don't want to use all the time here because we do want to leave time for Ask Me Anything. So I do want to highlight, we have a best practice guide as well. There's some additional questions, especially, since we talked about half of the folks here are more on the tech team. Some more technically oriented questions, especially about max outflow and rate and recommendations and stuff like that. You can check them out in the Go Qt platform. If you click the little question mark option, and there's under white papers and guides. Worst case, if you can't sort that out, if you don't have Go access, you can also request it from our website. So that's kind of the intro. Now it's over to a short demo that Johnny will run, and then we have at least the last, let's say, 15 minutes set aside for questions. So please don't be shy with those. Johnny, maybe you just want to set the scene of what we're going to kind of go over in the demo a bit.
Absolutely. So because we are coming up a little on time, I'm going to condense this one, so I apologize. But we are today, everyone can see my screen. This is Ninetronics. This is a demo site that Qt hosts simply for showing off end user experiences. So a real site, but not a real customer site. And today we'll be setting up a waiting room for a Black Friday event that's coming up. So I'm going to go to the Go Qt platform, and the first thing I'll need to do is focus on as I mentioned earlier in the call, the why. Why are we here? What is the event? When is it happening? So I'm going to create a new waiting room. And I apologize for those of you who have worked with Hewitt technical engagement team managers before. Some of what you might hear may be repetitive. However, anytime you're speaking with a Hewitt staff member or a Hewitt team member is helping you, we would be recommending our best practices anyway. So I apologize for any redundancy you may have in this demo. So for Black Friday, we know that it's not going to be an all-year event, so we don't do 24/7 visitor protected. And I don't want only VIPs or people who I'd have to send an invite to or have sign up from that waiting room. So it won't be invite only. So we'll be creating a scheduled waiting room today. Now, it's a scheduled waiting room. I'll need to give it an ID. 2024. Oh, and that name already exists. Let's just say Chopa. There we go. And we'll give this a title. I love typing when people are watching my screen. It's so fun.
No pressure, no pressure.
All right. No pressure at all, right? So I'm in Central Time, Minneapolis, that was Wisconsin. And I'm going to change this start time to November 29th at midnight. Now, when creating the start time, this will be the queue phase start time. As we see when we get to the life cycle tab, the actual waiting room settings and the summary, every new scheduled waiting room is that were created with a default 60-minute pre-queue. Now, again, we'll change that when we get into the settings, but this is for the queue phase start time, this life cycle. So I don't know when my waiting room is going to end. I don't know when my products are going to sell out, but I know I don't want to leave this waiting room running forever. So I'm going to give this an end time of 2 weeks later. And I'll just say at 3:38 because that's the time that populated. I know I'm going to go into the waiting room monitor page and end this event after my products are sold out. However, adding this end time, if I for some reason forget to cancel or end my waiting room, this end time will do it for me. So I'm just going to put that there for my own benefit, really. And because I am redirecting traffic from and to Nitronics.com, a site that I own, I'm going to confirm that this is correct. And I am going to go to the summary page, and you'll see here we have the default 60 minutes of that pre-queue start time, which my queue phase again at midnight on Friday the 29th. We'll go ahead and create that waiting room. And that will bring us right into the waiting room settings. Now, on the general tab, I'm going to leave the ID, display name, description. There's more internal comments. Nothing will show to end users. So I can leave all of this the same. However, I know that the target URL is going to be this right here, Black Friday. By default, with the actions, Hewitt will redirect traffic users back to the origin that sent them to the queue in the first place. However, if any user were to come in from maybe a direct link to the queue, or someone copied and shared a link to the queue for any reason, those users would go to the page I want them to go. So I'm going to put that page path right here in the starting URL. Jump through the Lifecycle tab. Here I can see I've got a 60-minute pre-queue. I'm going to hear just a little bit because I've got a big monitor, so apologies there. And I know from previous years that my guests have showed up to the website way early. They were sitting hammering the site a couple hours before, trying to get any kind of sneak preview of what's coming. So I'm going to block that for 120 minutes. And actually, because I am, let's say, magically transporting myself to Black Friday right now, 2024, I'm going to change that idle logic to the 4 page just so we can see the countdown timer when I go to the queue. And display mode, that visible at peak, which I know that I want Hewitt to monitor and manage my outflow in case users don't show up when it's their turn or they've tapped away, I want Hewitt to optimize the outflow so it matches exactly what I have set at the outflow rate. So I'm going to leave this as visible at peak, outflow optimized. I defaulted to my time zone as I set through the waiting room settings when creating the event. And my friend Tate has created a custom theme for Black Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and select that in settings. Chamberability time, the amount of time users have to take their turn when it comes up. If they've navigated away, tabbed away, Hewitt will show a little modal that says your turn started at this time. Please click below to be redirected. That would be that 10-minute window. I'm going to leave this all as default, and we can go to the deployment tab. Now, I already have a Hewitt connector implemented for my site, so I don't need to change anything on this page. In the bottom of these tab, I know that in previous years, I've had some bad actors, maybe malicious bots trying to script their way past my site, or game the system by hammering the entry point into the queue and trying to get better positions, or any 1,000 positions, see which one's best. I'm going to enable the proof of work challenge because I know that this has been effective in combating that brute force, like quick attacks that you're seeing from scripted attacks. And I can go ahead and leave that as default. Notifications, I don't need to be notified, and I don't have any tags, so I can go ahead and create this.
Johnny, I have maybe one. I can just jump in with a quick question on the display, just to highlight. You chose visible at peak, right? So that's applicable when it's in queue mode, right? So the pre-queue, everyone will see that.
Correct.
But then afterwards, once all those folks are shuffled, randomized, they're put in queue, they flow through, any newcomers are added at the end of that line, first in, first out basis. Then if the traffic is below the threshold, then that traffic will proceed without seeing the queue page. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes. So because I have a pre-queue time scheduled, or a 2-hour pre-queue, and I've selected the floor page as my idle logic, regardless of a threshold, because we're in the moments leading up to the event, everyone is going to see that queue page. So we're blocking that protected pages for this set amount of time. But absolutely right. During the queue mode, then if the threshold were to dip under the inflow were to dip under the max outflow threshold, then yes, Hewitt would go basically invisible and only kick in when needed. That's the safety net. Visible. Great question. I can go ahead and save this, and let's take us to the triggers. Now we figured out the why are we doing this and when is it happening. This is the what. What are we protecting? So I know that my site is ninetronics.com. Host name is www.ninetronics.com. Page path contains /Black Friday. And because I have a single page application, or if you were to have a single page application, you want to track or want Hewitt to take action on page-to-page navigation within your single page app, I would recommend maybe a hybrid approach with actions and triggers. Again, please work with your Hewitt team members to fit what questions you may have about your own integration. But for full coverage, and it's a single page app, I want to ensure that I've got a JavaScript trigger. And the reason I've separated this into two different known user or backend server side triggers is because with the known user trigger, I've included a request body value. So when a page, when a request comes to ninetronics.com/Black Friday, or anyone hits that add to cart direct endpoint with that product ID, Hewitt will then redirect that traffic. So this will help with any scripted attacks. Request body is not available as a JavaScript trigger, So I've created two different triggers. The only thing left to do is create actions. So I've already got the actions created because of my previous events. So I'm just going to go ahead and update this action to point to my new event. Let's go to Black Friday. And I can make the theme as defined on the reading and events, language and configuration. All of that can stay the same. And they need to make sure that the known user is also updated. I'll go ahead and make that change. And because I've made changes to the integration configuration, I'll need to publish these changes. So ensuring that the Hewitt integration cache has the most recent changes for my JavaScript actions, and then my connector can get the latest configuration on that 5-minute cache that it's on. So I have to publish this. For Black Friday. Apologize for my lazy mechanical keyboard. Alrighty. So because I have an endpoint and push these configurations, I'm going to click OK. But if we go to the weighted settings now, should be able to see that weighting is all created. And here we are, 64 days before Black Friday. I hope everyone's ready. I don't know if
I'm ready.
Black Friday 23, right? That said, when the waiting room is created, up and running, and it's go time, on the monitor page, you'll have, of course, the ability to update your outflow accordingly and provide that dynamic messaging during the actual event. In respect to time, to make sure that all of your questions are answered. If you have any that would like to meet with a Hewitt team member to talk more about monitoring an event, please reach out to Hewitt support or customer success, and we'll definitely schedule a call for you. However, I wanted to share an example runbook. Now, my team lead, Scott Wilson, fantastic person, has crafted this runbook based on many examples that we've seen in the wild over the years. This is just, again, a goalpost, but think of a runbook as what really we want to happen, what we want as a wish list almost, if everything goes according to plan. Yeah, that said, Christian, I think we could take it back to you for some Q&A.
Sure. I think there was actually just one that came in from Iyad, so I'll pass that one over to you. Can the cancel cookie be a catch-all rule for all waiting rooms, or do we have to assign cancellation action for each waiting room?
That is a fantastic question, Iyad. So each waiting room would need their own unique cancel action because the Hewitt accepted cookie or the session token for that waiting room specifically is what we're canceling. So a cancel, again, it really is focused solely on one waiting room. Within the actual action, though, you can select multiple events. So if it makes sense to cancel for multiple events, by only select different events. If it's the same endpoint, if it's the same page that you want to cancel on, absolutely. However, it is currently configured for one event. I hope that didn't confuse you even more. Yeah. The answer is yes, you can.
And yeah, so again, a call to, this is the Ask Me Anything section. So today's presentation, so please drop something in the chat or in the Q&A. I have a couple other ones in here. How many max redirects should I allow per person? That was also on that screen there you had, Johnny. I think it was at 3, if I'm not mistaken.
3, correct. That's a fantastic question, and it is going to depend on how much you as a business are willing to allow your customers to potentially have a chance to get back into the waiting room. Default is 3 because we want to offer a little buffer for real human user behavior. So a user is redirected from the waiting room and accidentally hits the back button, or the user copies their unique link to the queue and sends it to their email address or a different device. Totally normal behavior. However, if the user is sharing that link with a bunch of friends, or the user is putting it on social media, you want to make sure that you are really only allowing the smallest amount of buffer possible. I would suggest 3, and our Hewitt folks, who are much smarter than I about the psychology, have determined that 3 is the best number for that. 2 is a little too restrictive. 1 is absolutely too restrictive. And 4 and above can be a little too generous. However, again, it will be unique to each use case and user experience.
Great. Then we have one on what should I do if my site starts to get overloaded during the sale? When we've seen this, sometimes load testing is fantastic. We recommend it, but it's really difficult. Or at least the feedback I often hear is it's really difficult to predict real user behavior with testing. So it sometimes happens that systems running a little hot. What would you recommend in that situation?
In every single case, pause the waiting room. Pause that waiting room and let the traffic build up in Hewitt. So we're immediately halting any outflow from Hewitt back to your site. Because if you're experiencing errors or you're seeing high error rates happening, those are humans. Those are real users who potentially could be redirected from Hewitt to an error page, which is never a good thing for an end user. So Hewitt highly recommends pausing if you feel that your site is, or if you find that your site is running into a lot of errors and overloaded. Once everything is calmed down, then Hewitt recommends resuming at a much lower rate. So the lowest we can go is 5 on the waiting room. But again, based on your infrastructure, what the lowest amount makes sense to you folks. I would still recommend 5 in even very, very expensive infrastructure because you really want that traffic to start trickling in and monitor how it's performing. You'll notice also when I paused that the dynamic messaging modal pops up because Hewitt strongly believes in a real informed user journey. So giving your users who are waiting in the waiting room some sort of expectation about what's happening or information about what's happening. That's how I would handle that situation.
Right, thanks, John. And it's maybe also worth flagging. Certainly, if you reduce the outflow speed, then it could be that the estimated wait time will go up, right? So you'd want to kind of highlight that or clarify it in the dynamic message, and maybe clarify that we're starting things off slower. Could be that wait times increased. We're working to increase the speed as the systems are coping with things. However you want to articulate that.
Absolutely. And we can make a bunch of assumptions about end users on the internet. Yes, we can say they should expect that when you resume, things are going to happen a little slower. However, give them that comfort of a dynamic message. I know I like to be comforted personally. That's why I'm flat.
And Victor has a follow-up question. Does the customer know when the queue is paused? The answer is yes. They'll be able to see that the queue is paused. And actually, Johnny, remind me does that take the place of the progress bar? I forget exactly. I know there's that message that says the queue is paused somewhere on the screen.
Yeah, because this is still in, just start this video. It will take place where the progress bar, just below the progress bar. Again, everything can be customized to fit every need. So depending on where you want to put that message, you can change. But default, that will be on the
Yeah, or we could probably in the
right
custom
here.
theme, I think we have that little modal where it can show what it looks like when the queue
Yeah.
is.
So carriage ready for you. Hell.
Yeah, I really like that preview theme option. That and then you can see there's a little
Fantastic,
tick
right?
box in the top, and you can check like what it looks like if they have JavaScript disabled or the queue is paused. Uh, there we go.
Right there.
Maybe
So
try.
I
Yeah,
might
maybe
personally
it might
make
not be
that a little bit
configured for
bigger.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah. I might personally make that a little bit more prominent. However, this is also a great tool, as you mentioned, the preview theme. For many folks may not know that you have a gear icon, which gives you many different options. So for the before page, you can simulate the transition between pre-queue and queue.
Yep. Let's see here. We have what average outflow rates do you see across your customers? That's a great question, and that one I will give to you, Johnny.
It's a question I wish I could answer. It really is so varied that it's going to be different for every website. The best recommendation I could make for an outflow is if you take a look at maybe your max concurrent user limit, right? So my site can handle 1,000 concurrent users. And my users are taking, on average, about 10 minutes. I'm going to divide this by 10. And guess that will give me 100. Now, that would be the max outflow that I would want to have, because across any rolling 10-minute window, I could potentially have 1,000 users on the site. Because that's the max, I actually don't want that to even get close to my maximum. So I'm going to cut that right in half. Some folks may say 75% or 60%, 65, 62.5. However, because I like to play things very conservatively with my outflow and really hold users until I know everything is great on my site, I'm going to set this at 50 or maybe even 25% just to start the waiting. Once the waiting room has started and everything is moving really well, I don't have any errors on my site, I have a really high conversion rate, I'm going to go ahead and then bump this up in real time. So to reiterate, my best recommendation would always be start as low as you are willing to go and ramp up accordingly.
Awesome. And then okay, let's see here. We've got a couple. Yeah, what is the user experience when the waiting room is paused? What does it look like to the user visually, wait time, etc. And I'll also I just got an example here. I'll put in the chat. Hopefully folks should be able to see it. I've just called it amazing sale. Just kind of interesting. But here you could see I can maybe yeah, or Johnny, you can maybe open that one. Yeah, exactly. So this is the new refined theme as well. Option that we have, and if you, John, if you can, let's see, highlight there in the top right, the modal, show the options there to the queue is paused. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so there you can see
I love
number
how
of users. Yeah, exactly. That's a big clear, and that's the default one that we're using the refined theme that everyone has access to. But this is a nice little toggle there just to help see what things will look like if you hide or different situations.
So yeah, even Good stuff.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there are so many different tests or example scenarios that are provided on the custom theme preview. So check it out. You learn or see things that you hadn't noticed before.
Yeah. Cool. And I see comment that pretty clean design. Thanks for showing us that. Yeah, so Flag, maybe you're not aware, but this is a new refined theme that is available. I believe, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're doing a custom theme, which was one of our best practices there, you will use kind of the standard default one that we have as the basis point for it. So we do still recommend that, but if you are just sort of looking for something quick and dirty, then we did have an updated, more clean theme that we've made. I see a question here. Exactly, you've got options. Presently, Qt interacts with the page. If we have a net scaler in front of our site, is it possible to have the net scaler validate that the traffic is going through was from Qt?
It's definitely possible to do. Yeah. I would suggest reach out to your customer success manager to schedule a call with someone on my team, and we will talk about how that's possible. Qt has a couple of very robust APIs, and there are many, many very cool use cases that you can do with our APIs. Automation, full automation, validation of tokens. Check them out. I'll put links in the chat for our APIs, but reach out to your customer success manager and let's continue that conversation because it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and that's just to add on. I know that's or if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think that's as Johnny was alluding to, it's a pretty powerful bot and abuse mitigation tool as well to make sure no one's skipped the line. Using the API to call it, make sure they have that kind of secure token that they've been through the queue. And there's even ability to add kind of custom identification key values basically in, whether it's a username or email address or whatever, to even heighten the amount of validation and verification that goes on before they're able to, for example, make a purchase, right? But yeah, as Johnny mentioned, good to schedule a call and delve into the nitty-gritty there. And let's see. We've got a thank you from Tina also. Thank you for the question. And I can see we are at a bit over time. I think we've gotten pretty much all of the questions answered. So if you do have additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, support@qt.com or in the Go platform itself. There's a option there. Yeah, exactly. Support. Perfect. Right there. So thank you, Johnny, for joining as the panel expert here, and for the nice demo. And thank you all for joining us today, sticking around for an hour to talk shop with regards to Qt. I know you've joined from around the world, so wish you the best remaining rest of your day wherever you are. And thank you again for being a valued Qt customer. Appreciate it.